Hello there, it's Jan here from JB Crafts. Thank you for joining me today. I've got a nice 3D construction project today, and I've designed this one for Mother's Day. So here in the UK, we celebrate Mother's Day at the end of this month, at the end of March, so it falls on the 30th of March this year. I know over in the States it's later in the year, but I thought I've got a couple of projects in mind, just to sort of give you a couple of ideas this year if you're wanting to make a Mother's Day project. So this one's actually a little shadow book card. Just gives a little bit more room to express, you know, your sort of creative flair and to add a bit more detail than just a normal card. So it opens like a card, but it's just a little bit thicker. It's about half an inch deep altogether. So I've got my beautiful decoration on the front, and I've used some decoupage as the main theme today. And then when you open this, we've got that nice little shadow box on the inside, and I'm going to show you how to do this. This is made from a piece of 12 by 12 inch card, so all the scrapbooking size pieces, perfect for this. And then I've decorated it with elements from my stash and these gorgeous pieces of decoupage. So the frame itself is really simple to do. I have already got a tutorial on the channel how to make these what I call deconstructed, so you can make them any size, but this is a great one to do from your 12 by 12 pieces, and it finishes up at 6 inches square. So I've got a 4-inch square panel inside that I've got to decorate. These are 1 inch in width, and the whole thing closed is 6 inch by half an inch deep. So yeah, really nice and easy to make. I've used some nice sort of pearlescent card for the frame, and then I added the brown in there just to sort of link everything together. So we've got some sort of pinks, some corally pinks, and then that cream as a constant all the way through. So I'm going to show you how I've done it. Nice and easy to put together. Once you've made one of these and you get the idea of how they work, they're really simple to do, and you can make them in all sorts of different colours. You can use your pattern papers, anything like that. So I'm pop that one to one side, and I'm going to start out with that shadow box. So we're just going to do that first of all, and I've got my piece of cardstock here, and this is just a piece from a 12 by 12 pad. It's got a very slight pearlescent finish to this one, and 12 by 12 across, and I'm going to score it, make 4 score lines on each side. Now I've started doing this on a couple of sides. I will just finish those other sides. So I'm just going to grab my scoreboard without knocking everything off and pop the other score lines in. So I've got my score tool at the ready, and we're going to score and make a 1 inch score line. Then we're going to go at half an inch. Then we're going to do another 1 inch and another half an inch. So you'll have 4 score lines, which will create that 1 inch width, a half an inch depth, a half an inch depth on this side, and then the 1 inch to tuck underneath. So that goes exactly the same on all 4 sides. So let me just move that across for a second here, and I'm going to rotate so that I've got my unscored sign in my scoreboard, and I'm going to follow those measurements. So we've got the first one at 1 inch all the way down, then I'm going to go to 1.5 inches, and then 2.5 inches, and then again at 3. So you're creating parallel lines. You've got an inch gap, then a half an inch, then an inch, then a half an inch, and we'll just do that once more on that final side. So again, if we just turn that round, we've got 1 inch to start with, then at 1.5 inches, then at 2.5 inches, and then at 3. And I've already done the other 2 sides just to get us going a little bit. So pop that to one side, and if I lift this forward now, I'm hoping that you can see those sort of like tram lines that go around each side. Okay, and you end up with a square in each corner that's got lots and lots of little squares inside it. We're going to do some work on those. Now, just before I finish with my scoring, I am going to pop it back in my scoreboard, and I'm going to go here. Let me just have a think. I want to go at, it might need my big scoreboard actually for that one. Let me just swap them out and just get the larger one, because we need to make a couple of extra score lines. There we go. You can see that 12-inch width across there now. So where I've got my 1, 1.5, 2.5 and 3, after the 3 inch I'm going to jump to 4, but I am only going to score down to that second score line here. So I'm just going to put my ruler there so that you've got a visual. I'm going to jump from that last score line at 3 to 4 and pop a score line in just in those first two. So if I lift it up there, I'm hoping you can see this on video. We've got it just down through that first one, stopping at the second one. And then I'm also going to do that at the other side. So again, I just pop something in here so that I can see where I'm aiming for. And we're going to come in, this internal score line here should be at 9. Okay, so we're going to come into 8 and we're going to make that score line again just down to the second horizontal line. And then I want you to flip it the whole way round so that these score lines that we've just made are at the bottom. And we're going to do the same again. I'm going to go from that 4-inch just down to the second mark, and I'm going to go again at 8-inch just down to the second mark. So you should have 2 little extra lines on one edge and 2 on that opposite edge. These 2 stay as they were. So that's all our scoring done. Nice and simple all the way around. And just see if I can squeeze that back in there. Then we need to do some foldishing. Made a new word. Folding and burnishing. Foldishing. There we go, you see. So I am literally going to pop on all those lines. I'm just going to fold my cardstock and just get those score lines in there, and then we can burnish everything to make sure that they're nice and secure. So just with my burnishing tool then, 1, 2, 3, and then that internal 1, 4. And we're going to do that on all sides. So again, I'm just going to take them in one at a time, however you prefer to work. Get the lines folded and then just burnish into place. So we've got all 4 again. 1, that 1/2-inch one, then back to 1 inch, and then back to 1/2 inch. And then work your way round and do that on all 4 sides. So I'll just finish that off. Where's that one gone? There we go. And the outside edge. And again, it does pay to burnish them in because it teaches that cardstock where you want it to sit. Okay. And then the last one, we've got that internal edge, the 1/2-inch one, the second 1-inch one, and then that last one. There we go. So that's all 4 sides done exactly the same at the minute. Don't worry which sides, those extra little score lines, those are a cutting guide. So we don't need to worry about those just for a minute. Okay, like so. The next thing I'm going to do, just to make it easier to fold, these are going to become the sides of the shadow box. You can see there when we fold it, we've got the piece that's going to go underneath. The 1/2-inch is the outside edge. This is the top edge and this is the side. So just to make sure that it all folds nice and straight and that there aren't any sort of wobbles all the way around the outside edge now, I am literally going to take off like a fly's eyelash with my guillotine. It's the tiniest, it's the equivalent of a score line. So, you know, when you think about how wide the score lines are, I'm just going to go around all 4 sides and take off that tiny little sliver, and I'll explain why I've done that when we come to actually fold it all together. So just keeping it nice and skinny, as if you were trying to cut a score line away, and just taking that edge down. As I say, just that tiny little sliver. Okay, so that's those done with. We can get rid of those pieces. That's my guillotine finished with, and then we need our scissors. Okay, so I'm going to bring the scissors in, and the first thing that I'm going to do is take away all the corners. So if I could just get my pencil, you'll be able to see this better. So where all the lines bisect in the corners here, we've got score line here and a score line here, and then you've got lots going on in the middle that you can cut away. All right, so that internal score line, the last one you made on each side, is what we're going to cut away. So if I do this here now, I'm going to cut to the left hand side of that score line and cut the score line off right down to the last score line that we made, and then flip it round and do the same at this side. I'm taking the score line out of the equation and take that whole panel out of the loop, so you can see where the whole piece has come out of that corner. And I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. Okay, so again, just really quickly cut down the score line to where the final 2 bisect, and then take that one out and just follow it round and do that on all 4 of your corners. We don't need those last final pieces. That's the 3rd one, and then the last one there. I'll take the score lines away because it makes everything easier to fold when we actually come to pop this together. All right, so we've got those 4. These bits are not needed anymore. We get rid of those. You can see we've got that now. We've taken the corners out of each one. Now, the one that we put the extra score line in, so I've still got a score line here and here. We did that one at 4 inches and at 8 inches. So what I'm going to do, as I say, I'm going to draw it in again so that you can see what I'm actually going to do. So this is the one that we put the score line in, and then we've got that inch here. We've got an inch, which is going to be the top edge of our box. So I want to take the base of that score line out to the edge of that 1 inch mark. It almost makes like a chimney style. So I've not gone into the last 1/2 inch piece. I've come down where we scored, and then from the bottom of that score line across to the outside of that 1 inch piece. And then I'm going to do the same at this side. So I'm just going to pop a line in so that you can see where I'm heading, and we're going to do the same on both of those edges. So if I pop that down now, you can see where I've got those lines. We're actually going to cut away these outside pieces, and I'm going to do that on both sides. So again, all I'm going to do is use that score line as a guide. I'm going to cut the score line away, stop when I get to the 2nd score line, which is where we did that extra line to, and then just take it from here to that outside edge, so you can see what I've cut out there. And then I'm going to do the same at this side. So again, just follow that pencil line. If you prefer to put the pencil lines in so that you can see where you're going, absolutely no problem, like I've just done. But once you know how this works, I'm just going to do this one freehand. I can see the score line and I can angle it to the outside of that 1 inch piece there. So again, down the score line, and then just angle it to the outside of that 1 inch gap. Okay, and then those are all waste. We don't need those bits. So this is what we end up with when we're finished. So we cut the corners away first, then we've cut those angles from these top and bottom edges. So now when we flip it over, we're going to have our sides pop in. And I did say I'd explain why I chopped this bit off. I've chopped the equivalent of a score line just so that when we fold it, you get a really nice angled fit. And that extra little piece, although it was just a fraction that came off here, doesn't push this out of alignment. So it just allows it to sit in there nicely. And then because we took those angles off, this one will fold round like so, and this one will fold round like so, and you'll end up with your little shadow box. So we're going to stick all that down in a second, and that is literally as simple as it goes. Now you can make these any size, absolutely any size. You could do a really little tiny dinky one out of a 6-inch square. You'd end up with a little tiny space in the middle. Same procedure. So all you need to do is decide on the width of your frame. So this may only be 3/4 of an inch. You might only want it 1/4 of an inch deep, and just allow for those score lines. And then this is the format for each one. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is then I'm going to put my piece, I put a piece of pattern paper right in the back here. Okay, so I've just taken some pattern paper from one of my paper pads, just fairly plain, and I've added a little bit of stamping in the back there just to add some detail. So I've popped some text in there, and I've got a little bit of abstract which I've just done with my tattered rose Distress Oxide ink, because that was a really nice match for the colour scheme that I was using. And this is going to fit. This is cut to 5 3/4 inch square. We've got a 6-inch square panel in the back, and this is just going to sit nicely in the back of there before we do the folding. Okay, and then there'll be oddments of this stamping showed. All right, so let's get that one stuck down with some all-purpose glue, and that can be drying in the back. And then we will stick all those pieces together and let that whole frame dry while we do some work on the rest of the project. So again, just pop some of that glue on the back of here, and then that's just going to nestle nicely inside that back 6-inch square area, and let that dry. And then we're going to bring all these elements in and stick them down. Now I'm going to flick to my acrylic glue for this part, just because it grabs a bit quicker. You know that I love my all-purpose glue, but it does take a little bit longer to dry, and when I pop these inside here, I want them to stick in place. So I am going to pop to my acrylic glue. You can use double-sided tape for this if you prefer. You could use a tape runner if you've got a nice strong tape runner, but I like to use a wet glue purely for the reason that it gives me that facility to just wriggle things in place. Now, I've not been in here for a couple of days. I don't know how well that's going to behave. Let's have a look. Let me just give that a little clean, because as I say, I've been out of action for a couple of days. So I'm just going to use a pin there, and yeah, it is a little bit goopy in there. Just give that a clean with the pin. I'm normally in here most days, so it doesn't get a chance to clog. See if that works a bit better. So yeah, I'm just going to pop that on that 1-inch piece. Come on, don't let me down now. Still not coming through brilliantly. Come on. It is working, but it's not coming through as thick as it does normally. See whether I can get away with it. Sometimes it just suddenly starts to flow properly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in with the 1-inch and the 1/2-inch piece. So it's almost like folded in half. And then if you fold the whole thing flat down to the back, so the whole thing's flat at the minute, and apply pressure and allow that glue to grab. That's why I've used the white acrylic glue, because it does go, it starts to cure a little bit quicker. And then once you're happy that that's stuck down, you can press it back the other way and add some pressure. And then we've got our first piece in place. So you can see it's created that tube that's 1 inch by 1/2 inch. And because we chopped that little sliver off, it's not got in the way of that final edge. We've got a nice rectangular tube there. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So again, we're going to do exactly the same on this side. Cover it in glue. It's not flowing properly, but it's flowing enough that we've got some glue out there. And then again, fold it in half, so you've got a 1-inch and a 1/2-inch piece folded, and then fold the whole thing, tuck it all underneath and fold the whole thing flat, and you'll get it lined up perfectly doing it like that. Apply some pressure, then you can squeeze it back the other way. It should lay flat both ways if you've got it in the right position. And then we've got our second pillar or column or side in place. And then these ones are now going to tuck inside here and create that final part of the frame there, like so. Now what I like to do with this is put a little bit of red line tape. I'm just going to put a touch in here, just to seal it in those corners. So I just want some little pieces, just cut in little lengths that are about 1/2 inch long. And I'm actually going to pop those where this is going to overlap. You can either put them on here. I tend to put them under here because then I know that they're in the right place. So on those 4 angled pieces that we cut, and these are going to sit on top of the columns. And then I'm going to do the same at the bottom here on both sides. So this is just going to catch onto here and hold it in place when we stick it down. If you prefer to use wet glue in the corners, you can. I do like, as I say, just that little bit of red line tape because I know it's going to do the job and stick everything together. So I'm going to remove the liner off one side there. And then I'm going to bring my acrylic glue and we're going to go for that same panel. This is the bit that's going to tuck right underneath. So again, I'm going to add my wet glue all over that 1-inch piece. And now this time we're going to have to just tuck it right under. You can pull these out flat and lay it down, but I like to just go right underneath here and then tuck those side pieces in. You'll feel it tuck underneath. And then we've got that little bit of red line tape here to just catch the sides there. And again, just give it a second for that glue to cure and start to do its job. And then I'm going to do the same at this side. So remove the liner like so. Oops. And then we're going to add the wet glue again, or your glue of choice, onto that 1-inch piece again. And then that's that final one in place. So again, I'm going to tuck that one right underneath, fit it in the gap there, and then as I'm tucking this one under, I'm using my little fingers here to push those side pieces into position so that everything's nice and tucked in, and just give that a second to do its thing. So we'll put the lid on there for a minute because we've done with that glue for a second there. And then you've got your little frame. They're quite solid. I mean, my card weight that I've used is 250 GSM. I wouldn't really go much lower than 220 GSM for something like this. You do need a little bit of structure in it to get that weight behind it. Now, you might just want to make a nice little frame and decorate inside and pop a sentiment on. You could leave it at that. I chose to put that front cover on it to make it look like a card with the frame inside. So I'm just going to finish decorating the outside of here. You don't have to. You can leave it as it is. I find the decoration just covers up any imperfections if you didn't quite get it straight. I've not done bad with mine there, but if for any reason something's not quite straight, just adding a bit of detail on here just sort of covers up any little indiscretions. So I've gone for tone on tone here. I'm actually going to go with these pink on pink. And then what I did was just pop them through an embossing folder. So I've cut strips that are 3/4 of an inch. This is 1 inch wide, so I've gone for 3/4 of an inch, and then I've passed them through an old embossing folder with some flowers on because the embellishment theme was flowers. Okay, now I'm just thinking they look a little bit long. They want to be 5 3/4 inches, and I think these are coming up at 6. So I'm just going to pop them in my guillotine. Yeah, they want to be 5 3/4. You want a 1/4 of an inch less. That's it. So let me just trim those down before we get cracking to 5 3/4, and then I'll show you how I do the corners on them. So let me just trim those down there, all 4 of them, and then we're good to go. 5 3/4 and a trim. So the reason that the way I like to do these, as I say, there's a couple of ways to do this. It's entirely up to you. You could just pop them on, and you could do 2 long ones and 2 short ones and fill the gap. You can go across like so, and you could put your horizontal ones over the top of the vertical. I like to mitre the corners. If you look at this one, it's got that nice mitre that follows the line of the box, and I found a really simple way of doing this. People used to ask me when I was teaching, you know, how do you get those corners right, Jan? You know, the easiest way I find to do this is to take 2 of the pieces and overlap them and make sure that the corners are straight. So I've got this edge straight here, and I've got this edge straight on this side, perfectly straight along the cardstock. And then all I do is I go from that inside corner to the outside corner and cut both of them together. Okay, that one just moved a slight fraction. I can just see the corner there. Yep. So I'm just going to cut them both, and then when you put them back together, you've got that nice angle to go back in there. Okay. So I've actually put tape on the back of mine ready to stick them down, but you can see now that when these fit together, you've got that nice angle good to go on there. So I'm going to do that with all the corners. So we're going to come to the bottom here now, and we're going to do the same on this one. So again, I'm just going to pop them together and make sure that they're nice and straight on that outside corner, and then go from where they meet here to that outside edge. And then we've got them with the right angle on. So this side we want one for the top, like so. You can, if you've got, if you've got tools that will measure the corners, you can do that with, with an angle maker and things like that. But I just find this a really quick way of doing it, and it's worked for me. And it's nice and simple. I don't have to think about any kind of maths to work out whether my corners are right. And again, just snip those out. So now we've got the pieces that are going to fit in here. I can actually get rid of those little extras. And like I said, I've put some tape on the back of these just to make it quicker. So what we're going to do then is remove the liner off here. And we can get these stuck in place. So because I've cut them 3/4 of an inch, I've got that little bit of border from the frame showing. So I'm going to pop these down, and they'll run level roughly with the pieces that are already, the angles that are already there. Okay, so you've got them on the angles of the box where it went together. And then the same again. So again, I just need to get rid of the liner off here. And then we can match these up and just run them up together like so, and down to that next one. And again, like I said, this is optional. You don't have to put pieces on here. They don't have to be the same colour if you do choose it. They don't have to be embossed. You could use pattern paper on here, however you want to do this. But it's just a really nice little finishing touch. You can see how they match up together now. And I've got roughly the same border all the way around. And it just adds, I think, a little bit of texture with the embossing in there. Just adds a nice touch. So again, last one there with the paper, and then this one should fit in here, miter up to that one, and then it should go all the way up and meet up with the one that we did originally. Okay, so you can see we've got all our detail going on there, just with that little bit of embossing to add some extra detail. So that's the actual frame complete. And I'm going to show you the products that I've used for decorating with. So these are Crafter's Companion products. They're an old, again, you know that I'm an avid believer in using that stash. Delve in there. It's an old Sarah signature collection called Caring Thoughts. Some of you may have this at home, I'm not sure. You may have something similar. And they did a decoupage topper pad. And it came with dies that cut out all the decoupage. So I've got both of the sets. There are this particular design, and then there is this one as well. So I've done one of each. I cut one of these out with the dies and I've assembled it, and this is what you actually get when it's assembled. If I pop it on that side, you can see this is the first one, and you just build them up as you go along until you get all that detail. The little butterfly is extra. I got him from a different part of the collection, and I've got that one ready. Now I've only used very small 1mm pads. I didn't want a massive amount of height, but you can just see there, if I hold that up, that it's got that little bit of dimension, and then this one is just stuck in the middle, so the little butterfly wings will actually pop up and give a little bit of shaping on there. So that's what's going to go in the centre of my box. I've also cut some of the other design, this one, and we're going to use that on the front to do some detail on the front of the card as well. I've also used some, did I use some? Yes, I did use some elements. I didn't use the paper from the pad, but in the back of the pad that came with this collection were lots of little pop-out pieces. So I have used some of the extra. I've used one of the sentiments, a couple of the little flowers, and the butterfly came from there as well. So again, have a look in the stash, see what you've got. You know that's what I like to promote on the channel. So this one's just going to go straight into the back of here. It's the perfect size. And I've popped some foam pads on the back. Maybe went a bit overboard, but hey ho, you know, when you've got them, we may as well use them. So I'm going to take the backers off the foam pads there. So just bear with me for a second while we get those off. And then I'm going to pop that right in the middle of the design there. Let's get those backers off there. So we've just got a couple more there. And last two round ones, and then I've just cut some in half to just put a little bit of support under the leaves at the side there. So I've got one there and the last one just there. Okay, and then if we get that back the right way around like so, and then I'm just going to lay this inside here so that it's fairly central and pop that into my design. And like I said, you might want to leave it at this. You can make these where you put a piece of card on the back of them. So you could stick it on here like a tent fold and put it on the back. It could be a book fold on the back so that this is actually the front of your design and your card opens behind here and you have a greeting inside. You may want to just leave it as a little shadow box. You can put a little stand on the back of it to help it stand up. We're going to take it to the next level by adding a card front onto here next. That's going to be the next job. So I've actually cut a piece of contrasting card. I've gone with brown. And I wanted my 6-inch square to cover the top, and then I've added a 1/2 inch on one side that we're going to stick down over the edge of the left-hand side of the box to make the spine so that it opens like that book again. Okay, so 6 inches by 6.5 inches, and then I've scored it at 1/2 inch there. So we'll just get rid of that one, and then I've put some double-sided tape. I've used my red line tape for this because it's what I call a pressure point here. It's stuck down here, but it's against the opening, so I wanted something that I knew was going to do the job, and that's where my red line tape came in. So I'm going to take the liner off the red line tape there, and we'll get this one in place. And I have already put some of the mats and layers on the front of here because I wanted to focus on making the actual shadow box. So when I flip it over, I've got a 5 3/4 inch piece of glitter card in gold, and then I've got a 5.5 inch piece of pattern paper on the front. And I'm going to lay this over the box at the front, and then this is going to just fold over nicely onto that spine down the side there. So you've got that 1/2 inch there, should work perfectly. So I'm going to apply some pressure from the top there, and then we've got that in place, good to go. Okay, and then as I say, how much you decorate is entirely up to you. You know, there's no right or wrong with this. I'm going to add some more detail to the front of here, and I've used the same paper as what was in the background to create a little banner with a strip of the scrap pink that was left over from the pieces we used here. And I'm going to place that one on the front. So again, we're going to use some of the all-purpose there. And just add this as a base to break up a little bit of that pink before we start decorating the front of it. So again, I'm going to pop this just off to the left-hand side and then concentrate my cluster of embellishments over on the left here. So like I said, I have got some more of that decoupage. Let me bring in my little tub of goodies, and I've actually put the main cluster together. Again, I wanted to focus on making the shadow box, and I didn't want to be just sat sticking pieces together for the rest of the video. So I've used one of my stamp sets. I've had these, I think the majority of these are from Amazon. I've not got packaging for them. I've just got them in my own storage pockets, and I've just stamped out the little postcard here in brown as a backdrop to break up the decoupage from that background paper. And then I've used some of those extra pieces from that pad that we cut out to build up a nice little cluster of embellishments to fit on here. And again, we've got that butterfly with its wings that will lift on the bottom here. There's 2 layers of him on the bottom, and this is just going to go at a slight angle here on top of the the banner piece at the back. So I'm going to stick that flat, and I'm just going to use a little bit of that acrylic glue, and I've got a tiny bit of foam pad under here because I wanted to keep that lift. And then we're just going to pop this, as I say, at a slight angle, coming off the edge there, probably about there's good, and get that on the front. Okay, and then I've made a Mother's Day banner, and I've stamped out a little happy from one of my stamp sets. I've got a couple of extra embellishments, and I've got a little bow that we're going to use on the front. So this one, I'm going to use that glue again and just tuck this under the edge of the cluster that we made. So this one's just going to go under the edge of here, across like so. And then we've got the happy, which again, I'm just going to pop that at the top. So 2 different stamp sets. I like mixing the fonts. So we've got that nice script font for the Mother's Day. And then we've got the block letters to go up here for the happy. And then I've got an extra little flower that was left over from the decoupage. So I've got a foam pad, and we're just going to add that and fill in that cluster at the bottom there. And then I've got one last little butterfly, and I'm just going to put glue in the centre and pop him again, just to bring everything together. So I just want that to stick in the middle, and then when it's dry we can lift its wings. And then I felt it needed a little bit of something else, so I've just picked the gold up from the glitter card, and I'm going to put that tiny little bow at the top there, and I'm going to use a glue dot to pop that in place. So I've just got my glue dots at the ready there, and I'm going to pop that onto here. Oops. And then stick the bow about centre at the top of the banner. Okay, so that's that bit done. And then the very last piece that we're going to pop in is, I'm going to put a piece in here. So I've just used the glitter card again, and a piece of cream, scraps of the pink that were left over, and I've got another embellishment that we're going to pop inside, so that you can write a message, you know, to the recipient there. If you wanted to add different decoration here, you could always put a matte layer on the back to write a message. As I say, there are always options with regards to where you want to put messages. But again, I've got another 5 3/4 inch square of glitter card, cream cardstock on the top. I've got a little bit of the leftover pink linen, and I'm just going to stick that one on the inside there. And I'm going to, because it's a nice large area and we're going cardstock to cardstock, then we'll put this one on with that glue. Okay, so all-purpose glue again. I've got a border all the way around the outside, and then that one can stick in place. Okay, give it a good fold closed, and that one should do its bit. And then for the internal piece, I've got a little layer of vellum that I've used a scallop die for from one of my nesting dies, and then this element was out of the back of that paper pad again. So it's got a little frame, and then I've just lifted slightly the inside piece on some foam pads here and created my own little embellishment. And then there is a bit of double-sided tape at the back, because this is going to hide under everything else. And we're going to pop this on the inside here, and I thought it looked really nice just sort of in that centre position, and it says "just for you," and that's going to do the job inside there. Okay, so we've got our shadow box, we've got our book cover on it. It will stand, you know, as a gift, you know, to do like a you know, a card fold. And then of course, you know, on the final one I did add some little gold beads on the front and in the inside of here, just to link everything together. You know how much I love my gems. And then I will just point out, on the original sample, I actually used one of my corner punchers to do the corner elements on here, and I got myself in a bit of a quandary because I didn't actually like it. It didn't stand out enough, and it made the corners look really wobbly. You know what I'm like with my OCD? Because I'd taken this shape out of the corner here, I've got more of the gold showing. I was like, oh, I don't like it, I don't like it. I've made a mess. You know, I've wasted my paper. I thought, right, just stop and take a breath. And if that happens, the best advice I can give is walk away from it and come back a little bit later. And I sort of jazzed it up a bit by adding some pearls in the corner of the punch design. And then I got my pen out and did a little bit of lines around the edge just to focus it, because I felt as if the edge of this piece had got lost, you know, on the glitter card there. So I didn't repeat that on this one. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I made, and I'm not quite sure how I forgot that process, is that, you know me and my ink. I hadn't inked the edge of this paper. And you can see the difference, I think. I've gone round the edge of this with some vintage photo ink to link it to the brown. And I just think it makes such a big difference. And omitted the corner punch. I don't think it needed it. There was enough going on the front without the corner punch. And therefore didn't need the extra line round the edge either, because the ink is doing the job perfectly. So yeah, as far as that background layer is concerned, I prefer this. Much prefer it. But obviously once it's got all its pearls in there as well, it just adds that finishing touch. So again, just dragging them through the sentiment to focus the eye, and then one or two scattered on the inside just to link it together. So that's my project for today. I hope you've enjoyed that one. So ready for Mother's Day here in the UK. You know, if you're over in the States, I think it's around about May that you celebrate Mother's Day. So there's no reason why you couldn't save the video or have a go at this if you wanted to make it for later in the year. So yeah, if you've enjoyed the tutorial, consider giving it a thumbs up for me. Let me know, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer it with the angular corners and the ink, or do you like those decorative corners? Does it not bother you that they're a bit wobbly on the corners? Let me know down in the comments which you prefer. It's just me. I know, I'm very aware of my OCD. I struggle with it every day. And yeah, for that reason, I do prefer the actual straight corners with the inked edge on that one. So yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. I'll leave those thoughts with you. Let me know what you think. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll be back very soon with another tutorial. So bye bye for now.